The Nine of Pentacles features a wealthy woman in a beautiful gown, enjoying her beautiful garden while holding a falcon. Stay tuned to learn who this card is modeled on and how to interpret it when it comes up in a reading. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we'll be learning the tarot deck one card at a time. Today's video is about the Nine of Pentacles. This video will begin with a short description of the card. Next, I'll briefly explain what this card means when it appears in a reading. Then we'll talk about what each element symbolizes and what the card means when it shows up in both the upright and reversed position in a reading. I'll give some examples from my life so you can relate the card to a real-world situation. And stay tuned until the end, and I'll give you several questions to help you connect with the card. I will be using the Rider-Waite Tarot in this video. You'll find the link to the deck below, as well as to the many books that I've used in my research. So let's get started. In the Nine of Pentacles, we see a woman standing in her vineyard. She is wearing a red hat with 9 tiny circles just above her face. She is wearing a yellow dress with blue edging. The dress has a red collar and red flowers on it. There is a bunch of grapes just above the point on her collar. We can see the yellow toe of her right shoe peeking out from under her dress. The garden is luxurious and we can see grapes that are ready to be harvested. She has a falconer's glove on her left hand and a hooded falcon sits on her hand. There are 6 pentacles on the left side of the card and 3 pentacles on the right side. In front of her we see what looks like dead grass. In the background we see 2 trees, mountains, and a castle. The sky is yellow. When the Nine of Pentacles appears in a reading, it can mean that you are a wealthy person who is comfortable being alone. She is relaxing in a luxurious garden and there are grapes on her grapevines. She's dressed beautifully and we can see her castle-like home in the background. She is self-sufficient and not relying on anybody else to provide for her. This card signifies that things will turn out well for you, that you've been rewarded for your hard work. Growing grapes is neither fast nor easy. It can take 3 or 4 years for a grapevine to bear fruit. During that time, they need to be pruned regularly, and then the grapes must be harvested with care. It is a lot of work, and she is reaping the rewards. The Nine of Pentacles is about exercising self-control. She is not partying and squandering her resources. She looks like someone who is definitely in control of her movements and what goes on in the garden. She's even managed to train a falcon, which is generally a wild bird, to do her bidding. This card is about enjoying the finer things in life and appreciating the fruits of your labor. Let's talk about the symbolism of this card. We see a woman standing in her vineyard. The overwhelming color of this card is yellow. There is a yellow sky, the yellow pentacles, and her dress is yellow. Yellow is a color of happiness, optimism, and well-being. So overall, the vibe of this card is sunny and positive. She is wearing a red collar on her dress. Red represents love, passion, and action. Once again, Pam Richards in her book Understanding Tarot has pointed out 2 things that I didn't notice about her clothing. I've done my best to magnify the image so that you can see them. The first is that the hat has 9 tiny circles just above her face, which mirrors the number on the card. The second is that there is an image of grapes right above the point of her collar. According to Pam Richards, and I quote, "Grapes, placed over her heart, would show an abundant, generous nature. When a hexagram is formed, it creates a fusion of male and female energy, bringing harmony and demonstrating someone who is at peace with herself, needing nothing but her own company." Unquote. The garden is luxurious and filled with grapes. As Pam Richards pointed out, grapes can show a generous nature. Grapes are used to make wine and can symbolize wealth, abundance, and pleasure. Grapes also ripen late in the season, so they can represent waiting patiently for success. Finally, harvesting grapes is difficult work and can represent working hard or overseeing people who work hard on your behalf. She seems relaxed and comfortable in this environment. Her yellow gown is the same color as the sky and represents happiness, optimism, and well-being, as well as maybe someone who is independent and a bit fiery. The red flowers on her dress can signify her love of nature. The flowers also look like the Venus symbol, which represents femininity, love, and beauty." Unquote. Under her gown, we see blue edging. This can represent sensitivity and a connection with spirit. We see a yellow shoe poking out from under her dress. The yellow shoe points right while her head faces left. Pam Richards says that this represents plans that are taking place in her mind, yet she is not yet ready to act on them. She has a falconer's glove on her left hand, and a hooded falcon sits on her hand. The falcon is interesting and kind of a contradiction. I did some research, and falcons were used as peace offerings and were also highly valued gifts. Falcons were expensive to keep and a sign of luxury. They were also trainable and used to hunt small prey such as rabbits. They could also be trained to attack larger prey such as deer, and then weaken them enough that the trained dogs could finish off the kill. I did some research on the medieval training methods for falcons, which, in hindsight, was a mistake. Let's just say that how they trained falcons was pretty cruel, and I'm not going to ruin your day by sharing it here. Birds generally represent freedom, yet we have a creature who is hooded and trained in not nice ways to kill on the command of this woman. It can mean that she is in control of her environment, or that she has a lot of self-control and determination to meet her goals. According to Marcus Katz and Tally Goodwin in their book Secrets of the Waite-Smith Tarot, this image is modeled on Rosalind in the Shakespearean play As You Like It. In the play, Rosalind is exiled to the Forest of Arden, where she disguises herself as a male shepherd. Unfortunately, I don't have permission to reprint their photo, but it shows Ada Rehan playing Rosalind. She is standing in a garden dressed in a hat and long gown that is very, very similar to this picture, right down to the flowers on the dress. I'm going to share two paintings that are the closest I can find to give you an idea of the clothing and the garden. On the left, we see Rosalind and Celia, and I don't know who is who, from a painting by Margaret Gillies from As You Like It, Act 1, Scene 3. On the right, we see a portrait of Rosalind by Henry Nelson O'Neill from 1856 that gives you an idea of the lush background. It is interesting that the snail appears in Act 3, Scene 1 of As You Like It. Snails are slow, independent creatures. They represent patience and taking time to smell the roses. There are 6 pentacles on the left side of the card and 3 pentacles on the right side. The 6 pentacles on the left can represent the same thing as the 6 of Pentacles, which is someone who is generous and willing to help those in need. She is gently touching the top of the pentacle with her right hand, as though she is totally comfortable with her wealth, but doesn't need to flaunt it. Compare this to the 4 of Pentacles, where he was showing off and holding on to his pentacles at the same time. The 3 pentacles on the right can represent her plans for the future, as we see in the 3 of Pentacles card. In front of her, we see what looks like dead grass. This provides an interesting contrast to the lushness of the garden, so maybe things aren't as wonderful as we think. In the background, we see 2 trees. The trees represent duality, just like the pillars in the High Priestess, which is card number 2. I think it is appropriate given that she radiates generosity and positivity, but also holds a trained killing bird in her hand. She is a complicated woman. In the background, we see mountains and a castle. I'm guessing that she owns all of this land, and it is a symbol of her wealth. Finally, this card is the same number as the Hermit, which is about the importance that we sometimes need to step away and experience time alone. When the Nine of Pentacles appears in an upright position, it is a card about success, abundance, and prosperity. You are being rewarded for your hard work. It is about relaxing, appreciating life, and enjoying the fruits of your labor. It is about being independent and self-sufficient. It can mean that you are showing restraint or exercising self-control. It can mean that things will turn out well for you. And finally, it can represent someone who is generous. Here's an example of the upright Nine of Pentacles from my life, and it's about being rewarded for your hard work. When my kids were young, we had a babysitter who worked part-time for us while she was in high school and college. For several years, I would drive her home, and then one day she showed up with a brand new SUV that was far nicer than the cars that my husband and I drove. She explained that she'd been wanting a car for years, but her parents refused to help her buy one. This was unusual since we lived in a fairly affluent area where it wasn't uncommon for kids to get a car when they turned 16. Her parents told her that she'd appreciate a car much more if she worked for it and bought it on her own. I actually think they were right. This was more than 20 years ago, and I still remember how proud and excited she was to purchase that car. A few years later, she was able to purchase her own home, and she remains a proud and independent woman, just like the woman pictured in the Nine of Pentacles. When the Nine of Pentacles appears in a reverse position, it means that you are too busy, possibly to the point that you are a workaholic. It can mean that you are overspending, in debt, or experiencing other financial difficulties. That you have lost your independence or sense of security, that your life is falling apart, that you are very vain, that you are envious or intimidated by someone else's success, that you lack appreciation for what you have or have a sense of entitlement, that you are pretending to be wealthy, that you are too confident or lacking self-confidence, and finally, the reverse card can symbolize property damage, either through vandalism or by acts of nature. Here's an example from my life about the reverse Nine of Pentacles, and it is about being envious of other people's success. In 2014, I went to a 3-day seminar in New York City about how to build your business. At that point, I was too naive to realize that these top business coaches charge $500 for a 3-day event as a way to upsell you on more expensive coaching. I was with a group of about 20 women, and I really loved this coach as well as the other women in the group. I desperately wanted to be part of her community. However, her low-end coaching was $1,000 per month, and her upper-level coaching was $100,000 a year. Both, unfortunately, were outside of my budget. Everyone in the group was interested in coaching, and the coach explained how we could get the money to cover her fee. Her suggestions included borrowing it from somebody or putting it on a credit card. But the suggestion that really took me by surprise was to use some of your trust fund to pay the coaching fees. At that point, I knew that trust funds existed, but I didn't know anyone who actually had one. It ended up that I was one of only 2 people in the group who didn't sign up for the coaching program, which was the right financial decision for me and my family. But I was very envious that the other people signed up, and I felt very sorry for myself that I was not part of that group. I am still friends with some of the people today, and it's interesting that the coaching wasn't as great as they hoped it would be. Despite knowing that I made the right decision, it was 10 years ago, and I still regret that I didn't have a trust fund to help me pay for something that I really wanted. Here are some questions to help you connect with the Nine of Pentacles. Number 1, are you self-sufficient and financially independent? If not, would you like to be, and how can you reach that goal? Number 2, do you feel like you've been appropriately rewarded for your hard work? If not, what needs to happen to change things? Number 3, do you enjoy spending time alone? Is it time to take a break from your busy life and smell the roses? Number 4, do you appreciate your possessions? Number 5, what achievements are you most proud of? And finally, number 6, are you envious of someone else's success? Is this benefiting you or harming you? So I hope that this helped you connect with the Nine of Pentacles. Please join me for the next video, which is the Ten of Pentacles.